So the question is, do we really know who Zia Haider is? And I think that is why we have all rushed here amid our daily routine, the horrendous traffic jam, and my students have voluntarily left their classrooms and come here to greet, to meet, and see this living legend, and maybe ask a few simple basic questions like, can you speak a line of Bangla for us? So I think this will be the one of the most memorable occasions in all our lives. So let us not waste any more time and listen to Zia Haider Rahman. Ladies and gentlemen, Zia Haider Rahman.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you very much for a very fulsome and generous introduction. I don't deserve a word of it. You know, it's true. I called Professor Alam just after he had had a conversation. I called him to ask if it would be possible to visit Dhaka University. And he said to me, goodness, we've just had that conversation. So these things, what do they call it? Synchronicity, you know? Serendipity. The serendipity and synchronicity. There's a coincidence that is sometimes alarming. Now, this is going to follow a slightly unusual format. I'm going to give a talk. I'm going to try to keep my talk to, this is dangerous, when you say you're going to keep it to 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you know, then you're hostage to that. So I'm going to say that I'm going to keep it to a finite length of time. And then we're going to talk about the book. We're going to have a discussion about the book, and we'll take questions at the end. And I'm very eager to get questions from people beyond the front row.
Okay? So you're going to read from the book too.
And I will read from the book as well. But I did want to talk a little, because, you know, one thing that I've heard, I came here for Hey Dhaka initially, but I also went to Chittagong and other places. And I wanted to share some of the experiences I've had, some of the thoughts I've had in this brief time I've been here, which is about 2 weeks. I was here in Bangladesh last in 2002. I worked with Manzoor Hassan, who went on to join BRAC. But I worked initially for Transparency International Bangladesh, and I spent only 9 months here. And so I come back now and find myself comparing my impressions this time with my impressions of Bangladesh, really of Dhaka, 12 years ago. And I wanted to say a little bit about that. I prefer not to read from speeches. I like to take things a bit more fluidly. I hope you don't mind. First thing I'll say is that if there are any journalists in the audience, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. But if you want to know what this talk is about, you'll have to wait until the end. And don't assume you've understood what this talk is about from anything I say until the end. And I'll give you a sound bite or two which you can take away. You're very welcome, because what I want to talk about is freedom of speech. It's very hard for Bangladeshis, that's the impression I have. It's very hard for people who live here to say things in the current social climate, that things that are not so hard for people who come in from the outside and do not have to live here. So I understand that I'm in a privileged position. I understand that. Bangladesh is the land of the dead. We have two ladies fighting it out on the political stage, one of whom is the daughter of an assassinated leader, and the other the widow of an assassinated leader. And both stand in the shadow of death. Both of them rely for their legitimacy on the claim that they inherit the mantle of the dead. Bangladesh is the land of the dead. But if you think this talk is about politics, if you think this talk is about the two ladies, then you are wrong. It's about Bangladesh, the land of the dead. Now I'm going to tell you a few anecdotes. When I was working at TIB, Transparency International Bangladesh, very shortly after I arrived, I used to have why don't you do that? You know, it's very funny. I'm talking to you about the problems of communication. Or do you just want to stand there? No, go ahead. Right, thank you. That's all right, it's fine. All right. Yeah, so I used to have team meetings at TIB. And I'd ask everybody to gather, and we'd talk about an idea. We'd talk about an idea, or at least I would. And I would invite my colleagues. I was number 2, Mansoor Hassan number 1, and number 2. We'll talk about number 1, number 2, and hierarchies in a moment as well, because hierarchies are very relevant in any discussion about Bangladesh. Just like the front row I mentioned, there's a front row in this. Yeah, so, and the meetings, the first 2 weeks, the meetings were rather awkward. They never really moved beyond me talking. I would invite people. Take it, hold it. Okay. I would invite people to share their ideas. Let's bounce some ideas off each other. But very few people did, and they did so rarely. And after 2 weeks, one of the trustees called me in, Ahmed, who has sadly passed away. He called me in, and he said, "You know, Zia," and I said, "Yeah, Muzaffar." No, I didn't. He said, "You know, Zia, when you ask the staff for their opinions and their ideas, they panic." I said, "What do you mean they panic? Why would they panic?" And he said, "They expect you to have the ideas, and they just want to be told what to do." Right? So if you think this talk is about not taking initiative, then you are wrong. This talk is about Bangladesh, the land of the dead. I was in Sonargaon. I was staying at the Pacific Sonargaon. Hey Dhaka had put me up there. And I mean, it's very generous of them, but it's a little too much. I mean, I'm a simple Sylheti village boy, right? And why they put me up in Sonargaon? I'm staying there and I'm thinking, what the hell? I should be in a 3-star hotel. I'm fine. You know, just clean sheets. That's fine. Clean toilet. But anyway, I'm at the Sonargaon, which is, as I say, a 5-star hotel. Yet, the Sonargaon do I need it? Is this not enough?
Yeah, this is good.
Okay. There's feedback. If you have too many, mic me up. Okay. All right.
going to give. I mean, if we can't record this, fine. Okay. Actually, I'm recording it in this, so I'll give you this recording. Okay. So I'm staying at the Pacific Sonargaon, and this is not really a 5-star hotel. I mean, they say it's a 5-star. It's not. It may be a 1.5-star hotel. Okay. It's true. Really. I arrive and they take 2 hours to put me in the room. I had a long flight. Okay, long flight all the way from Paris, from London, from all. And then the following day, just one mistake after another. But the mistakes are really of this kind. They're all the same kind of mistakes. I say something to the receptionist, the concierge. I say, can I have a car at 5 p.m. this afternoon? And the receptionist says, the concierge says, this is not working for me. You listen to that, this is wrong.
Can you hear me? Can we get back together? I'm very happy to speak loudly. I can do that. Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. So the mistakes are all of the same kind. I say, can you make sure that there is a car here at 5 p.m. tomorrow? And the chap says, yes, sir. And I say, what time? And he says, yes, sir. And I say, 5 p.m. Do you understand? And he says, yes, sir. And I leave thinking something is not working here. The following day, I come down to get the car. I'm going to get something or other, and the car's not there. And I talk to the guy who coordinates the cars. He doesn't know about this. Anyway, this sort of thing is happening over and over again. And there are probably 2 reasons. One is that when this chap is looking at me, he sees a Bangladeshi face, right? But he also hears this funny voice. All right, so he's disoriented, right? He doesn't know what what kind of creature is this? So I understand that. And I've had that experience in many different countries. And usually what I do is oh, sorry. Thank you. Usually what I do is I ask people to repeat back to me what I've just said. It sounds rude, but it saves a lot of trouble. On this occasion, foolishly, I didn't. The other reason is that, and I realize this, in this country, if someone is, and I'm going to use the word subordinate, you'll all understand exactly what I mean. Someone who is in a lower social status than you, right, will never say no. Everybody always says yes. Everybody always says they understand. Everybody always promises what you want from them. So we'll come back to that. If you think this talk is about social conduct in Bangladesh, then you're wrong. Because this talk is about Bangladesh, the land of the dead. Hey Dhaka Communications, right? So I came here, as I said, for Hey Dhaka. My agents petitioned, they pleaded with Hey Dhaka for information about what I was doing, so that they could coordinate. When did Hey Dhaka answer the questions? Since my book came out in April, I've done every, festival after festival. My voice is broken. I am in a permanent vegetative state of jet lag. My body is not my own anymore. But it was Hey Dhaka, the first time, a Bangladeshi festival. I was so looking forward. It was the highlight of my calendar. Right? Of course it is. But they only told us what they planned for us the day before I arrived. And what they planned, that we asked them to plan something in Sylhet. They did not plan anything remotely adequate. Remotely adequate. In fact, the thing they planned, if I had done that, it would have been an insult to Sylhet. I couldn't go. I couldn't go to the place where I was born. And they hadn't even organized it. They'd asked some bookstore owner in Chittagong if he knew anybody in Sylhet. My point is, But they waited until 2 days before the event. But that's not their fault. That is so common in our society. Bad news. They don't want to say, well, we're having trouble. We're having difficulty. We don't quite know who to contact. Can you help? Right? There's no... We'll come to what the problem is. And if you think this talk is about Hey Dhaka, then you are very wrong. Yesterday was a rather alarming decision of a venerable court in this country. We all know what I'm talking about. And it should be alarming. It should be alarming. If you are sympathetic to that decision, then I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. My talk will disappoint you. It is an alarming decision because of so many things. Not least of all because it means that you journalists out there, you journalists have to be careful. I have to tell you that this morning I decided that I have the power, and I'm talking to you journalists, I have the power to send you to prison. I decided that. And I will send you to prison if you offend my mother's emotion. My mother isn't here, so I will decide what my mother's emotion is. And if you offend my mother's emotion, you're going to jail. My jail, my court, because that's what I do, by the way. I do that all the time. My experience is in judging other people's emotions. I don't even need to ask them. That's what I do. But if you think this talk is about judicial practice, then you're wrong, because it is about Bangladesh, the land of the dead. You know, when I came to Bangladesh this time, I came with a lot of apprehension. I came with a lot of apprehension because, you know, I'm coming back after more than a decade. I'm coming back without, you know, for me the big question throughout my life is, where do I belong? Where do I belong? And I wondered if I really belonged here. But it was a finer question than that. I knew I was coming to Dhaka. And so there was this question, do I really belong to the people I will meet in Dhaka? And hey, Dhaka is elite. Let's not, you know, necessarily elite. Why? Because the program is largely about English words. Right? And only a tiny fraction of Bangladeshis speak English. Someone told me recently that the fifth largest source of remittances in India is from Bangladesh. It's from Bangladesh. How can that be? The fifth largest. It's because Bangladesh employs a huge number of Indians. And that one of the big reasons they do so is that Bangladeshis don't have English language skills. I'm not saying that you ought to, but I'm just putting into sharp relief how elite Hey Dhaka is. And so I came to Hey Dhaka thinking, you know, am I really of a piece with these people? Am I really from the same continuum? I'm not. I come from a very working class background in Sylhet, but also in London. My father was a waiter, my mother a seamstress. And I have very little in common with the Dhaka elite. Very little. So what is this talk about? This talk is about ideas and the communication of ideas. And it seems to me that in Bangladesh or Dhaka, it's very hard for ideas to gain a purchase in conversation. Bangladesh is the land of dead ideas. Ideas that are throttled at birth because they can never go from one person to another. Nobody can ever, well, it's not so much challenge, but question authority, question somebody else's idea if that idea comes from someone in a higher social status. An idea doesn't have a status separate from the person who's saying it. Remember, this is a country now where nobody cares about the content of what you're saying. Everybody is obsessed with your motive. Everything is about motive here. And it has so long been about motive. What conspiracy, what shadowy group is he representing? That people have lost sight of the content of any claim, and they just focus on motive. This means that ideas cannot move. They cannot move from one person to another, because ideas are all about content. I think it's going to take several generations to undo this damage. This is not something that's going to happen overnight, because we are habituated. Everybody is habituated in a way of thinking. It seems normal, especially in the field of politics. It seems entirely normal to stop thinking about the content of any claim that someone is making and just focus on their motive or their allegiance. So I don't have any hopeful message to give you. You know, I don't know if the message that I would give you is, there is a message, but it's not clear to me that it's a hopeful one. But it is that, and by the way, if you haven't noticed, all these anecdotes I told you, they're all about this problem of the transmission of ideas. It just doesn't happen. It's locked by various things, by the politics, by this class stratification. It just means that an idea cannot move. And this is vital. This is vital because none of us knows the answer to anything. None of us knows the answer to anything. And we have to share ideas, we have to test them, we have to feel free to speak them, right? We have to feel free to say, do you know, I'm not sure about that, I'm not sure that will work. Or I don't know if I can find that for you, but I'll have a go. We have to be able to speak to the content of the idea and not worry about repercussions because there is some notion that what we're saying is for a reason other than it is what we genuinely, sincerely think. So the message is that it's not about how, it's just about what. It's that unless we find a way to resurrect ideas from the dead, unless we find a way to allow them to ventilate, and unless we find ways to stop the encroaching political and other forms of restraint on freedom of speech, social, Bangladesh is going to head in the direction that I have seen it go in the 10 years since my last visit. This country is more dangerous. This country belongs not to me. I do not belong to this country. You do not belong to this country. None of you. This country belongs to people with extraordinary power and privilege. And more so. And the only thing that can counter all the pernicious tendencies, the only thing, is an idea. Thank you.